Story 1. I was a manager at a call center. There was high turnover, so I had to fire people all the time. As a non-confrontational person, it was horrible. I was a bad manager and treated everyone on my team like my friends. I was also too transparent with some people but not others. I do not want to be in management ever again unless I am overseeing 2 people or fewer. Story 2. Being loyal to a corporation is not worth it. Do not waste your best years on them. They always prioritize money over people, no matter how good you are at your job. Story 3. Trying to make things work with a boss who did not personally like me was miserable. It was equivalent to staying in a marriage for the kids. It got so bad that during meetings with clients, he would spend the whole time cutting me down in front of them. I had multiple meetings with very large clients, such as Toyota and Delta, where their account manager would come up to me afterwards and ask, "What was that? Are you okay? Why was he so mad at you?" This has never happened before or since. The manager was a devout Mormon man with 9 children. He would lament that women just made better carers and had nurturing maternal instincts that made them ill-suited to corporate life. He never outright stated that I should be at home with babies, but the meaning was clear. I was the only female manager in our entire organization. The others had all left when this man took over. I tried to stick it out and make it work because I loved my team. I stayed too long despite poor review scores and started sliding into a very dark depression. The end came when I finally gave in and tried to change teams. He wrote me a formal review that was so terrible the transfer would have been blocked. My new manager decided to bring me on board anyway, and I flourished. For those who think everything can be solved with human resources, yes, I went to HR and a lawyer. They did not help. His religious beliefs are protected. Had he stated, "I am rating you poorly because I don't like women," there might have been a case. The burden of proof for such discrimination is very high, so one person being misogynistic does not move the needle. Story 4. Taking a manager at their word. Yes, you have been doing great. You are outperforming what we expect someone at your level to contribute. Then layoff performance reviews came, and suddenly, was unable to complete objectives without senior engineering guidance. But when you look at why I was not rated lower, technical contributions will not justify a lower rating. How can I both be a burden and have so much contribution that they cannot rate me the lowest? I should have gotten everything in my one-on-ones in writing so I could use it as evidence in a wrongful termination suit. Management picked and chose who they wanted to keep on their teams by giving those they wanted off the team's worst performance reviews. Never believe anything they say unless they are willing to put it in writing. Story 5. Do more than is expected of me. I am the type that always goes above and beyond, and I have never been rewarded for it. So now I am settling for just doing what is expected. Story 6. Undervaluing myself for a new job opportunity. It is much harder to increase salary during employment. The best time to negotiate your compensation is during initial hiring discussions. Story 7. Doing more than the quality and quantity requirements is important. If you consistently go above and beyond, others may slack off, expecting you to pick up their work. Keep your performance aligned with the metrics and stay under the radar. Story 8. There are people who are completely capable of betraying you if they believe it is beneficial. I am not referring to Brad, the friendly person from accounting who occasionally uses the nearby printer. I am referring to Carl, your closest work friend. If you think, "But my friend would never do that," then you are missing the point. Story 9. Not knowing when to cut my losses. I wasted so much energy trying to adapt to a toxic environment due to a fear of change and instability. Years later, the company declared bankruptcy, essentially forcing my hand. That was the catalyst that led me to a new career where I am much happier and more fulfilled. Story 10. Well, it turns out Japanese adult content is still classified as not safe for work even though they had blurred out the offensive parts. Story 11. There are several reasons, including loyalty to a company and trusting that the anonymous surveys are actually anonymous. Story 12. Do not do your hobby or what you like to do. You will end up hating it. Do what is going to pay well so you can actually do your hobbies. Story 13. Working for a startup with a chief technology officer who was a marginally competent developer in the first place. I worked with him at a previous company and did not see him in a leadership position until he recruited me to the startup. My goodness, he was a cheap imitation of Elon Musk. Story 14. Getting stuck in a position you are overqualified for because they keep promising to promote you, but you are too valuable in your current position to be considered for promotion. Story 15. The company stores waste while the jurisdiction is testing effluent and dumps it all when testing ends. Just follow orders. If instructed to break laws, you break those laws. If told to remove asbestos, go remove the asbestos. The union knew about dumping waste into the river and did nothing. The company knew it would save money by not paying fines. In recorded conversations with the union, they were more worried about loss of dues than any crime. My union representative went so far as to say that since he did not live downstream of the plant, he did not care about what was in the water. This is how Canada operates. Never report anything because it will not end well for you. Story 16. Personally, don't turn one of your core passions into a career unless there are multiple directions for growth, not just front desk, manager, or boss hierarchy, but upward and sideways growth because it might ruin it for you. Choose a career you are interested in, not your hobby or personal passions. I do not believe your career has to be one singular position set in stone because eventually you might want more for yourself. At least give yourself the option. Story 17. Asking for a raise without having a plan in place if they say no. I quit at the dumbest, most ego-driven time. Story 18. My first real job after college was working in manufacturing at a large biotechnology company. I was young and the money was good, especially when we had overtime. The problem was there was a lot of overtime. Sometimes I would work more than 10-hour days all week. In the long run, it was not worth it because I would wake up, work, go home, sleep, and repeat. I was so tired on weekends that I could not do anything. It was even worse because I was also in the Air National Guard, so one weekend a month I would be working. I got laid off after 3.5 years working there, and it was the happiest day of my life. There were other problems too, but the excessive amount of overtime and constant working was horrible. In summary, never stay at a job that has mandatory overtime or forces you to work more than 40 hours in a week. Story 19. Staying too long at one company. It was not loyalty. It was a great place to work. I liked who I worked with. I liked the work I did. Felt like I was always learning something. My reviews were always glowing. But the axe comes for us all. I transferred to another team that is usually safe from layoffs. I was safe for a time, but my position was very unique and the only one in the company. Eventually, it was decided that the role was no longer needed. My boss did not even know it was happening. It was so hard to find work. It still is. It took 18 months to find something, and even then it was for a tiny company where I am contracting, not an employee. My salary has fallen behind. People I knew who left before me have almost doubled their salary. And it sucks. I do not want to change jobs every 3 years, especially if you are at a good place. You never really know what the next place is going to be like until you are there. Story 20. Trusting your coworkers. I don't use social media much, but when I was on Facebook frequently, a coworker would show my boss my activities. On my days off or weekends, they would know I was at Dodger games or Disneyland. Then they would make comments like, "Must be nice to go to places," and so on. What my wife and I did with our free time was not the company's business. Story 21. I thought human resources had my best interests in mind. I spoke to them about a toxic boss, but later my boss quoted my own words back to me because human resources shared everything with him. Story 22. Trusting human resources and, worse, trusting those employee satisfaction surveys are anonymous. Worst lesson of my 20s. Story 23. Working after hours, on weekends, and over holidays because I believe that if I am a good enough team player, I will get a raise or promotion. In my last job, when I did that, I received the first round of COVID-19 layoff. I am very upset about that. Story 24. I will never give 2 weeks notice again. Day 1 locked out of the company intranet, so I could not even finish the turnover standard operating procedures I was working on. Day 2 access card to the office was deactivated. I had to sign in. By 9 a.m. on day 2, I packed up my desk and left. I did not say goodbye to anyone. Story 25. Consuming excessive alcohol at a work event the night before an all-day project occurred over 10 years ago and will never happen again. Story 26. Having a career is better. Life is better when you have a job that starts at 10 o'clock and ends at 9 o'clock, with no paperwork to bring home and no after-hours meetings to attend. The trade-off is that most jobs do not pay as well as careers. Instead, they offer extra time to do whatever you want and to spend time with children. Story 27. I am going to get downvoted because it seems everyone here has had the opposite experience, but I will never change jobs again without thoroughly interviewing the new one. I had a wonderful job with good benefits and pay that was not amazing but not bad either. I gave up competent managers, structure, and benefits for what I thought would be competent managers, structure, and higher pay. The higher pay is not worth the hassle. I hate this place. It is so unorganized. And frankly, everyone here is rude, lazy, and incompetent. I cannot even describe it. I left my last job without giving 2 weeks' notice, and I want to go back so badly. Story 28. That nothing is ever that serious. Work in information technology and worked in the operating room. If the operating room can wait, so can anything else. Story 29. Recognizing in the interview that I really would not like that person on a fundamental level, and still taking the job that makes them my supervisor. Story 30. Not asking for more money without reason. Every time I have asked for more money, I have received it. The first offer is almost always a lowball, and the worst they will say is no. Story 31. Not a career mistake, more like a decision based on personal choice. I do not want to work as a permanent employee. I may not get many benefits, but I do not have to ask for 3 weeks of consecutive annual leave. Story 32. Being friends with anyone from work is not necessary. It's easier to clock in, do my job, and go home. I don't need to talk to coworkers. I have my own life outside of work. Story 33. 5 years ago, I missed a clear transition point when I could have made a clean break after my supervisor, who hired me, left the company. Story 34. Agreeing to work for a salary that you are not very happy with. Hoping the company will increase your salary soon in recognition of your hard work. At first, you work very hard, but the company waits for your first mistakes to highlight them and show that you are not worthy of a pay raise. You then continue to work for a low salary. Story 35. Check what they will pay you before you accept more responsibility. I received significantly more work and responsibility, but only a small increase in pay. It is frustrating. Story 36. Working hard running training sessions, creating information guides, and going into work on days I should be working from home because I am a carer. I was put in a position where I could have been dismissed for misconduct because when 2 trainees bullied me and I stood up to them, upsetting them, it was blamed on me. In summary, I was reprimanded for not allowing bullies to win. My workplace has now lost the only qualified trainer they had. The last time they asked me if I could train someone, I laughed and said no. It could be argued that I am refusing a reasonable request. However, my union completely agrees with my stance. Story 37. Thinking that going above and beyond is doing a good job. Longer hours, more effort, and tasks beyond what is required are not healthy. More important things like health and family will suffer. Story 38. Heavy drinking the night before a big job. I got very lucky, nothing terrible happened, but that day was awful with a huge hangover. That was 12 years ago and never again. Story 39. Assigning as much overtime as possible for a few extra dollars is beneficial in the short term, but burnout occurs quickly and severely. Story 40. Giving the first number in a salary negotiation is the most uncomfortable conversation you will ever have, but do not ever give the first number. Story 41. I went to human resources for an issue with my manager, expecting them to take my side. They did not. I am now very wary of human resources staff. Story 42. Going above and beyond in the hopes of getting promoted only resulted in more work for me. When a promotion opportunity arose, They hired someone outside the company, saying I was too valuable in my current position and no one could replace me. Now, I give 100% at my new job in the position I wanted, but I never do more than is asked of me. A serious note for anyone in the restaurant industry. If you go for an interview and are offered a different position with the promise of promotion after a certain period, they are probably lying to you to fill that lesser role. Story 43. I once quit on a whim because I had severe imposter syndrome and was convinced my supervisors hated me. I got paid the following week and noticed they had given me a raise but did not mention it before I quit. I will never leave a job before making sure they do not actually dislike me first. Now, I am a stay-at-home mom, so my supervisors are much more relaxed. Story 44. Allowing my supervisor to take credit for the innovations I developed that significantly benefited the organization. Story 45. The company I work for has a large charity drive a couple of times a year, promoted as giving back to our local community. It happens in every store, so many places benefit, and it is great. However, the people who organize and carry out these drives are paid an extra 2 hours per week to manage and control them. I estimate I worked around 25 hours per week unpaid, every week, contacting people, organizing visits, carrying them out, ordering products, arranging deliveries, solving problems, and replying to queries. The day I received a box of Heroes chocolates as a thank you for working extremely hard to make the company look great for the last 10 years was the day I stopped doing it. Story 46. Taking a lesser role for similar money on the promise I would be promoted back. Making a lateral move for a small pay increase to change companies. Story 47. Joining management because the next step is 6 figures. I got fooled. Managing people is frustrating. Senior office does not understand anything about what we sell but pushes it hard in meetings and makes up reasons. Why can't a regular 40-hour-a-week job allow me to retire? Story 48. I will never let my ego dictate my career path again. I took the first job out of university as a mature-aged graduate that was offered to me. The job pigeonholed me into a role or career stream that effectively blocked any other opportunities. The job destroyed my self-esteem, education prospects, marriage, and general health. I finally quit. Living off meager savings, for months later, I am only just finding the strength to start looking for new opportunities. Story 49. I will never again waste my time interviewing without knowing what they are paying. If they say competitive, I am hanging up the phone. Story 50. Saying yes unconditionally. As the compliment to that, not documenting my work to demonstrate that there is a good reason for saying no. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.